The man suddenly realized the fast food restaurant before him was worth billions of dollars, needing only to add a little yellow mustard ketchup, 2 slices of pickled cucumber, and a little delicious onion to the sandwich. Finally, add a piece of freshly grilled beef. In just under 30 seconds, a delicious hamburger was completed. This speed left Ray, who had just finished paying, completely astonished. "What is this?" "That's yours, sir." No. I just finished ordering." "That's right, sir. This is your order." Ray looked at the hamburger before him, momentarily unsure what to do. You should know that in America in the 1950s, getting a meal required waiting at least 30 minutes. But this store only took 30 seconds. He couldn't help but ask the server where the knives, forks, trays, and condiments were. But the server told him that everything was inside the bag, and after eating, he could just throw the bag away. "Where do I eat?" "In your car, in the park, at home, anywhere you like," the server explained. This way of eating left Ray, accustomed to fixed dining styles, temporarily unable to adapt. But when he saw the children nearby all eating heartily, he also tried taking a bite of the hamburger. At this moment, a legendary story that completely broke all traditional rules of cuisine began. However, not long before, Ray was just a regular milkshake machine salesman. Already past the midpoint of his life, he had to travel across American cities every day. Simple meals had also become commonplace. Even so, the market downturn still caused him constant difficulties. Until this day, Ray received a phone call that would change his life forever. The company's customer service representative told him that a drive-through restaurant had placed an order for 6 milkshake machines at once. This made Ray momentarily unable to believe it. He immediately thought there must be a problem with the order because a typical restaurant only used 2 units at most. So he immediately asked the service representative to provide the other party's phone number and promptly called them. He intended to remind the restaurant owner to check if there was a mistake in the order. But unexpectedly, the other party requested 2 more units and wanted him to deliver them that very day. This left Ray, who had been in the food sales industry for many years, completely bewildered. To find out the truth, he decided to drive 2,000 kilometers to this store. Soon, Ray reached the drive-through restaurant named McDonald's. At this moment, a long line had formed in front of the restaurant. Ray curiously stepped forward. For just $30, he ordered a Coca-Cola, a hamburger, and an order of French fries. But as the server was just handing him his change, all the food he ordered was already ready. This left Ray astonished. With a sense of experimentation, he took a bite of the hamburger. To his surprise, it tasted that good. At this moment, a sanitation worker came up beside him. Through conversation, Ray learned that the other person was one of the restaurant owners. His name was Mac. He immediately introduced himself as the person who had contacted them about the milkshake machines and couldn't help but praise their operational efficiency. Unexpectedly, Mac invited him inside to tour the restaurant. The space here, though small, was not at all cramped. Each employee had their own specific task, responsible for each step of the process. All ingredients had to be cooked according to specific times in the kitchen. Processed according to this assembly line, it took only 30 seconds to finish a hamburger. Mac told Ray that speed was the key factor in their success. From baking the buns to packaging and selling, everything was the result of countless experiments to achieve the fastest speed, and all the tools here were custom-made for them. Ray curiously asked how he came up with all of this. Mac said it was all thought up by his older brother, Dick. Since their last name was McDonald, they named the restaurant after the 2 brothers' last name. Learning this, Ray couldn't wait to invite the McDonald brothers to have dinner with him. Throughout dinner, the 2 brothers recounted their startup journey. Initially, they only operated a typical drive-through restaurant, but low customer traffic and too many menu items quickly caused their restaurant difficulties. Various issues also led to losses. After that, they learned from this failure, reducing their menu from 27 items down to the 3 best sellers: hamburgers, French fries, and Coca-Cola. Simultaneously, they also got rid of all eating utensils, replacing them with single-use bags they designed. Later, they realized that the drive-through model often attracted undesirable clientele, such as rowdies and unsavory characters. So, Dick cleared away the cigarette and alcohol vending machines around the restaurant, replacing them with trash cans, creating a family-oriented dining environment. However, the most crucial factor was still the service time. For customers to have a better dining experience, the 2 brothers went to a park and drew the interior layout of the restaurant on the ground. Finally, after dozens of experiments, they found the fastest service method. Simultaneously, to attract customers better, they also added many entertainment facilities outside the restaurant. These measures not only revitalized their restaurant, but also attracted more and more family customers, completely changing their business model. Under the brothers' new business model, the number of customers coming here to eat and drink grew steadily. Back home, Ray couldn't sleep. The experiences of the McDonald brothers kept replaying in his mind. Soon, a bold idea popped into his head. So, the next morning, he couldn't wait to meet the McDonald brothers, wanting to buy their franchising rights to turn McDonald's into a nationwide fast food chain. We've tried that. As it turned out, Dick had already thought of this. They had opened 5 branches, but they all ultimately failed. The main reason was management issues. Without the brothers' supervision, the other branches started to become lax. Dirty kitchen environments and inconsistent menus quickly diminished the customer experience. Ultimately, market inspectors came to them to protect the reputation of the McDonald's brand. The brothers had to temporarily halt the idea of opening branches and rejected Ray's request. As Ray was feeling stuck, a picture on the wall suddenly caught his attention. It was a concept drawing with the theme of golden arches. At this moment, Mac quickly explained that it was just an idea of Dick's. He wanted to use a distinctive design to attract passersby. Ray was once again drawn in by their unique idea. Do you have any stores like this currently? There is only one store in the city of Phoenix. Upon learning this, Ray immediately set off for Phoenix. When he arrived in the evening and saw the exquisite store design before him, Ray was completely shocked. By the next morning, he rushed back home. But before he could say anything, his wife had guessed his intention. As it turned out, Ray had attempted several startups before, but all had failed. Now, having finally achieved a stable life after much difficulty, his wife didn't want to live in worry anymore. This time, he didn't receive his wife's support, but Ray didn't give up. He sought out the McDonald brothers again. Ever since seeing their golden arch design, Ray had a bold idea. Over the years, he had been to many cities, large and small. Each city had certain landmark buildings and symbols, such as the cross representing the church or the flag representing the courthouse. They each represented their own meaning. Therefore, Ray wanted to turn McDonald's into such a symbol so that when anyone thought of fast food, they would think of McDonald's. McDonald's could become America's new church, complete with a cross, flag, and sturdy uniforms. This time, the McDonald brothers were also captivated by Ray's ambitious drawing. After discussion, they finally agreed to cooperate with Ray. But to better control quality, they learned from their previous experience, introduced a stricter management plan, and put it all into the contract. Ray didn't hesitate to sign his name and receive the franchising rights for McDonald's. However, reality was not as simple as he imagined. When he brought his design plan to the bank to borrow capital, the person in charge immediately recognized him. Previously, Ray had brought many strange projects to the bank for loans, and it was no surprise that investors refused to cooperate with him. Without initial capital, Ray found himself in a difficult situation once again. After much thought, he decided to take a gamble. He secretly mortgaged his house with the bank without telling his wife. After raising the capital, he bought a piece of land as the location for the new store. Just this one time. However, what he didn't expect was just how strict the McDonald brothers' requirements were. He just wanted to add an oven and a storage room in the restaurant, and it took them half a month to approve it. Even the advertising agreement he had painstakingly secured with Coca-Cola was outright rejected by them. The reason was they didn't allow any commercial activity. "We are not comfortable with the idea of turning our menu into an advertisement," Dick explained. "Look, that's not advertising, that's sponsorship," Ray argued. It was frustrating because Dick was very firm. This incident also caused a rift between the two sides. But luckily, these differences didn't affect their future cooperation. Thanks to Ray's relentless efforts, his new store finally opened. As the first McDonald's store in the area, this novel operating method quickly attracted many diners. On opening day, there was a long line outside from early on, and Ray also personally went to the kitchen to oversee food quality. When he saw an employee placing one less pickle slice, he would immediately remind them they had a place too. When frying the meat patties, they needed to be pressed down once so the outside was crispy and the inside soft. Every night after closing, Ray would personally clean the premises. Clearly, this time he had done something right. After gaining this successful experience, Ray immediately sought new investors. Within a short month, he added 3 new chain stores. But Dick was very unhappy with his approach. He worried that expanding the chain too quickly would cause problems. In reality, it was just as he predicted. The investors were only interested in making money and didn't focus on controlling restaurant quality, leading to chaotic environments and hamburgers not made to specifications. At this point, Ray also realized that if things continued this way, McDonald's would become just another drive-through restaurant. So, he brought a hamburger and went to the investors to discuss. Hamburgers should only have 2 pickle slices, but you put 3. Lettuce and meat patties are either overcooked or undercooked. Faced with Ray's criticism, the investor appeared indifferent. Two other stores in the chain were similar. The chaotic environment became a gathering place for unsavory characters. Seeing this situation, Ray decided to terminate his cooperation with them. As he was worried about future development, a Jewish Bible salesman unexpectedly caught his attention. "Hey, wait, what is your name?" "Leonard Rosenblatt." "Why are you just selling Bibles for a living?" In this moment, Ray seemed to see a reflection of himself. Under his encouragement, Leonard and his wife became Ray's new investors. And not long after, the first McDonald's store managed by a couple officially opened. Leonard didn't disappoint Ray. He supervised every step of the preparation in the kitchen daily, strictly controlling food quality according to regulations. His wife stood outside handing out free candy to children. Thanks to the couple's management, this store quickly became a locally famous restaurant, helping Ray determine the direction of future development. So, he started seeking responsible couples to invest. Thanks to this, the issue of quality control was easily resolved. Not long after, more and more people wanted to get involved with McDonald's, and McDonald's appeared in Los Angeles, New York, San Francisco, and many other cities. Ray became a famous businessman, frequently visiting his stores to check on them, and his vision gradually turned towards the global market. It seemed everything was developing well. However, behind this bright facade, a silent crisis was approaching. One day, his finance person reported to Ray that the money in the account was gone. Initially, when signing the franchise agreement with the McDonald brothers, he only received 1.9% of the profits and had to pay them a 0.5% fee each month. The remaining amount wasn't even enough to cover monthly operations, let alone expansion. Upon hearing this news, he immediately called the McDonald brothers to renegotiate the contract. But his request was immediately rejected by Dick because they had always opposed Ray's rapid expansion. This completely went against their original vision. "You voluntarily signed your name, agreeing to the terms of the agreement." And just like that, the relationship between the two sides completely broke down. What was worse, due to the breakdown of his financial chain, he couldn't repay the bank loan, and the bank had called his home, letting his wife know about the house he had secretly mortgaged. Ray angrily went to the bank to demand why they had told his wife, but the bank didn't budge. Simultaneously, the investors also came to him complaining about the excessively high ingredient costs, especially the cost of storage and electricity usage. Making milkshakes accounted for the majority of monthly costs, but they came up with a solution, replacing the milk-based ice cream mix with milk powder, which was easier to store, not only reducing costs but also shortening the milkshake making process, and the taste of the milkshake produced was even better. Ray immediately reported this news to the McDonald brothers, but Dick outright rejected it, as he wouldn't accept a reduction in ingredient quality. "Ray, we don't care about a milkshake that doesn't include milk, like adding sawdust to hamburgers or frozen French fries." Facing mounting bills, and with no other options, Ray again went to the bank seeking a loan. But at this point, he no longer had any assets to mortgage, and the bank wouldn't lend money to his type of person. All their conversation was overheard by a young man. When Ray left the bank, he quickly followed, and this man named Harry would completely change the fate of both Ray and McDonald's. After looking through Ray's ledgers, he immediately recognized the problem. "Tell me about the land." "The land, the buildings, how does that whole aspect work?" As it turned out, previously, the McDonald's stores were all leased by the investors themselves. Ray was only responsible for training and providing equipment and operating technology. But Harry thought this method had a major problem. If relying solely on 1.4% profit from a hamburger costing $1.50, it couldn't be done. Harry suggested Ray not just focus on hamburgers, but buy land in bulk, then lease it back to the investors. They would be bound by the terms, only able to open stores at the locations he chose. Thanks to this, there would not only be stable initial income, but also the ability to continuously expand capital. Land is a fixed asset. He could use it to mortgage for bank loans, which would then stimulate further land acquisition, repeating this process. Ray could not only gain complete control over the investors, eliminating those who didn't meet standards, but also effectively usurp the McDonald brothers, completely escaping their control. Ray was captivated by Harry's plan, and with his help, Ray quickly established the real estate company Franchise Realty Corporation and began buying land in bulk. After receiving investment from Harry, he even bought the land where the McDonald brothers' store stood. He gradually shifted his focus from food to real estate. With Harry's relentless maneuvering, McDonald's sprang up across America, becoming the most famous nationwide chain, and all the land beneath the stores belonged to Ray. When Dick learned this news, he immediately called to confront Ray. But because everything was legally operated by Ray through an independent company, without changing McDonald's operational methods, merely acquiring the land beneath the stores, Dick couldn't bind him with the contract. At this point, they realized they had been completely sidelined. Not only that, once he had absolute control, Ray also mandated the use of milkshake powder for all McDonald's stores. Although this violated the contract between him and the McDonald brothers, Ray was now very rich and no longer saw them as relevant. "You are required to follow our regulations." "What if I don't? We have a contract." "No problem, you can go sue us anytime." Not long after, Ray also transformed the McDonald brothers' golden arch design into his company's symbol. Finally, unable to bear it any longer, the brothers decided to sue Ray. But Ray calmly told them that they might win the lawsuit, but the exorbitant legal fees would bankrupt them. At this point, Ray controlled all McDonald's operations in 17 states and the land beneath the stores. The brothers, with their small store, could not defeat him. However, Ray wasn't completely absolute in his actions. Ultimately, he bought McDonald's from the brothers for $2.7 million and promised them 1% of the company's annual profits. However, this promise was only verbal. Despite many conflicts and arguments, ultimately, this transaction was successful. This film is based on a true story. Ray Kroc successfully acquired McDonald's in 1955. Today, McDonald's has over 38,000 stores globally and is still the largest commercial real estate company in the world. Perhaps some people dislike Ray's methods, considering him simply a thief of others' achievements. But the reality is that the business world is unforgiving. If you are not strong enough, reality will always be brutal. Today's story ends here. Thank you for watching the film. What did you think of this film? Let us know in the comments below.